Product provided by Nintendo. Okay, so let's get out ahead of a lot of doom posting that's going to happen in regards to Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition not breaking 1 million sales within the first 11 days of its life. Jmulls, what the hell are you talking about? Well, let's get into it. Hello everyone, I am Jmulls. And the fiscal year ended in March 2025. So Nintendo recently posted their financial result, essentially detailing their financial performance as a company during that fiscal year. And there is a section entitled Million Seller Nintendo First Party Titles, that to my knowledge, and from looking at it, does not include Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. And because I know how the internet works, it's only a matter of time if it hasn't already begun, where people are going to doom post about Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, and list off the various reasons the game is a financial failure or whatever. Let's just talk about it. Because for the longest time, I kind of expected it not to sell as well as the other Xenoblade games for a couple of reasons, and I want to get into those reasons in this video. When it comes to Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, it is in my opinion that I don't believe Nintendo did the best job marketing the game. Sure, around these parts we memed on the fact that they just shadow dropped a bunch of trailers on random Tuesdays, yeah, sure. Remember when Xenoblade Chronicles 3 headlined an entire Nintendo Direct? It was like the big reveal at the end of it. Remember when Xenoblade Chronicles 2 came out at the very beginning of the Switch's lifespan, like within that first year window, when there was relatively little in the way of competition? So a lot of eyes naturally gravitated to Xenoblade Chronicles 2 because people just simply wanted something to play on their new piece of hardware. In comparison, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition just had a bunch of random trailers that came out, and I don't at least recall ever seeing it in an actual direct. Now, I don't think that would have solved all of its issues. I'm just saying things, when taken alongside each other, can have effects that add on to each other. On top of that, Xenoblade X is a game that deviates away from a lot of what Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3 actually do. I've talked about this in regards to Final Fantasy recently on stream, and I have an entire video that's already scripted about this issue, specifically for Final Fantasy, but I think the same logic applies to Xenoblade Chronicles. People like familiarity, they like having an identity when it comes to their IP that they love so much. Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, and just Xenoblade X overall, is a game that, while it is a Xenoblade Chronicles game, looks and feels very different from 1, 2, and 3. And because it initially just kind of seems as if it's just, a spin-off title, some people might not view it to be as important as a mainline numbered game. Whereas if you play the game and you know what I'm talking about, that's just not what Xenoblade X is, and it's actually one of the most important entries in the entire series. But the initial impression, a lot of people, especially in a more casual audience, the initial impression will be that it's just a spin-off and isn't necessary. So combined with lackluster marketing, I think this effect as well strengthens that overall sentiment. Also, let's be fair here. A lot of people were waiting for the Switch 2 Direct as well. Like, we are fully in the season at this point of anticipating the next piece of hardware, so it's not unreasonable to me that maybe not a majority of missed sales, but at least a portion of the pie is a result of people just simply wanting to wait for the Switch 2. Now, granted, the Switch 2 Direct was on April 2nd, not March, which is when the fiscal year ended, but we were waiting for that Direct. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market at that point in time, coupled with people anticipating tariffs and everything, and it wouldn't surprise me if another portion of the pie is a result of people just trying to be fiscally responsible or just scared of what the current market may look like in a week or two. Again, I'm not saying this is like hundreds of thousands of people for each of these things that I'm mentioning. I'm just saying little reasons that are straws that are put on top of a camel's back. But on top of all of this, and I think this is the strongest point here, Xenoblade just doesn't sell incredibly. Like, that's just the kind of reality of the situation with the IP right now. It's not a series like Zelda or Mario that's going to sell 5 million copies or 10 million copies. I think the highest selling Xeno thing ever, like this includes Gears and Saga, is Xenoblade 2, which is around 3 million, though I don't think we have actually updated numbers. The main point here, Xenoblade Chronicles as an IP has yet to become an IP where people assume that it's going to sell 1 million a week. It is not that kind of IP yet. It is a niche JRPG that is locked to one console, and while that console is one of the best-selling consoles of all time, that still naturally limits your player base. And when you look at other RPGs that are exclusive to the Switch, that have the added benefit of these larger-than-life IPs attached to them, like say a Mario and Luigi Brothership, or say like a Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Yeah, those games sell more, typically, than Xenoblade, at a faster clip, but they also have rock-solid IPs attached to them. So I don't think a series that sells, right now, anywhere between 1 to 3 million, depending on the title, is in a particularly bad way. I just don't believe that. And I also don't like the modern discourse that a lot of people have when it comes to gaming, because we have lambasted companies for setting unrealistic expectations for games in the past, where they have this view that if a game doesn't sell 6 million copies, then it's a financial failure, anything like that. It's unrealistic, and leads to unhealthy practices and prioritizations when it comes to the gaming market and the ecosystem on the whole. I think for what Xenoblade is, as a series, I'm quite optimistic about its overall state. I think it's on the up. Now granted, we just simply don't know the actual numbers of Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. It's like, maybe it didn't break 500k, we don't know though. And like, maybe it's broken 1 million since the end of the fiscal year. We simply don't know. You would kind of expect them to release that number, but maybe they just don't for whatever reason. Again, at the end of the day, we simply don't know, and I don't think it does much of any good to idly speculate about a number that we simply don't know, and that the only thing that we do know about it is that within the first 11 days, it didn't sell 1 million copies, which I don't think anyone with realistic expectations for Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition really expected it to break within 11 days. Like, that would have been wild if it actually did. With the level of marketing that it actually received, and for the time when it actually came out, when people are mostly looking ahead to the Switch 2, for a game in a niche JRPG series that also already deviates a lot from the established norms of that series, that would have been insane. But like, let's look ahead to the future. What are possible ways that I could realistically see Nintendo find ways to boost the sales of Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition going into the future? I think the obvious one is a Switch 2 upgrade with possible DLC. I think that could go a long way. I think maybe a balance patch, because if you have any understanding of how the game actually works, the game's difficulty goes off a freaking cliff, which can lead to uninteresting combat encounters. Now, there is a point here that I want to just kind of like nip in the bud real quick, and that is people saying it's the gameplay of Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition that is leading to its like apparent lack of popularity. Yes, however, I think if you start to try and compare it to Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3, that's where you lose me, because I think the gameplay overall is a massive reason, and the primary thing that is holding Xenoblade Chronicles back as an IP from even more success. And I want to get into that in a future video, because I'll be here all day if I get into it here. You know me, I can yap. I think there's going to be a lot of people that take this situation and try and blow it out of proportion, to try and make it a bigger deal than it actually is. I don't see this as like the death of Xenoblade. I don't see this as a condemnation of Xenoblade Chronicles X overall, or anything like that. It's just the reality of the industry that we're in, and the reality of the IP right now. I think we've like, not fully hit the limitations of the current Xenoblade formula, but I think we're getting there. Xenoblade Chronicles X has always been a clunky game. It has always been an imperfect game, a game with giant peaks and giant valleys, and Definitive Edition smooths out a lot of those like valleys, brings them up a bit, and allows a lot of those peaks to shine even more, but it doesn't remove all of them. From subpar balancing, to quite a few quest designs being just largely clunky, inelegant, and annoying to actually execute on. Hello, all those quests that involve me running around a circle in the main city looking for random bits of dialogue. Hello, all those quests that involve insane amounts of grinding that no one wants to freaking do. Look, I'm going to level with you. Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, in my opinion, has probably become a top 3 game of all time for me. I love it so much. And it rivals Xenoblade Chronicles 2 for me, which is something that I never thought this series was going to be able to do, because of the emotional investment I have with 2. I played 2 at the perfect time in my life to where everything about that game just clicked with me. And they managed to capture lightning in a bottle in that regard for me again with Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. Playing it on stream with a bunch of you guys was one of the best things I've ever done with this channel. And I know this sounds sappy and I know this sounds like cringe and all that, but it was kind of magical. And that's a playthrough that we have still yet to complete because I want 100% the game that I'm never going to forget. And every time I make a new short about that series, I just get a smile on my face thinking back on those times. I love this game. I adore this game, and I adore this IP overall. I love Xenoblade. All 4 of the games are likely in my top 20 games of all time. It is an IP that is near and dear to my heart, and I love it so much that I hope to see it succeed, and I want to see more new blood come into this IP and fall in love with these characters, fall in love with these worlds, and fall in love with these stories. That's one of my ultimate goals. I want to see Xenoblade Chronicles get the recognition that I fully believe it deserves as one of the best IPs, if not the best IP in gaming. But I think there are a few components in terms of the actual gameplay that I think are drastically holding it back. And again, these are not issues necessarily with Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition by itself. These are like IP-wide issues. The tutorials across the board are garbage. They got a little bit better in X Definitive Edition. Enemy design in terms of mechanics is borderline non-existent, unless you go for like certain difficulty modes, like Bringer of Chaos in Xenoblade 2. Quest design can be really hit or miss. Movement and just like hitting your buttons can feel a bit awkward. Your characters may feel a little bit too slidey or just non-responsive. If you've ever platformed in Xenoblade Chronicles X, you'll know what I'm talking about. Again, I love the fact the game lets you go anywhere. Again, it's one of my favorite games of all time, top 3. Having said that, the movement overall can be tightened up. And this stuff may not matter if you're a big-time fan when it comes to Xenoblade, but for a more casual audience, I think it does a lot, because these are like little things you pick up on subconsciously that paint and color your experience going forward, and whether or not you want to dump more time into the series, or whether or not you're interested to get into it at all. In particular, when it comes to Xenoblade Chronicles X, scales are incredible, but dude, the combat can feel really slow and clunky, especially out of the box, and I don't get their logic in regards to making you grind so much to get all the various components to get a really good scale online. I get that Xenoblade X always kind of did feel like a single-player MMO, but that's not a good thing. People are willing to grind in MMORPGs because they know that progress is going to be carried years and years and years into the future as the game receives constant updates. X is not one of those games. It's a full experience. It has a beginning, a middle, and most importantly, an end. And by the way, I don't think Chapter 13 had any sway on the sales figures at all, in any capacity. Maybe like 12 people in the world, but like nothing more than that. And in my opinion, if people trying to argue that, that's missing the forest for like the trees. Not even the trees, like the blades of grass on the floor. Because you're not even in a forest, you're like in a cardboard box. But like when you take all these like individual little issues that I've talked about throughout this video, and you combine them all together, that's when I think we start to see the reason why maybe, again, we don't have confirmation about the current sales figures for Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. For all we know, it could be selling rather well, and they just decided not to tell us for whatever reason, Nintendo be Nintendo. But if it's not, I think these are the reasons why. Rather poor marketing, the gameplay deviating quite a bit from the established norm of the series, which maybe ostracizes a few of those like more traditional Xenoblade fans that maybe aren't the most hardcore Xenoblade fans in the world, but they're more of a casual audience, let's say. Again, nothing wrong with that. It's just a reality you kind of have to face as an IP. Combined with like the gameplay still being the weakest part of a Xenoblade game in terms of a more casual audience. I like the combat in Xenoblade. I love the combat in 2 and X. However, I can still like something, but identify why people on the whole may not appreciate it as much as I do. I feel one of the biggest issues with modern internet discussion is that people become too attached to various things, and they view any criticism of a certain thing to be directly aimed at them as a person. People get way too attached and they become way too personally invested when it comes to conversations like this. And I think it can lead to toxicity, it can lead to just internet discourse going around in circles and never really achieving anything or going anywhere. This is not unique to Xenoblade, however, I think discussion about Xenoblade falls under that umbrella. And again, like I talked about before, one of the things I want to see is the continued rise in popularity of Xenoblade Chronicles as an IP. And I think the best way to go about achieving that is for Monolith and Nintendo to be provided constructive feedback that is well thought out and also specific. And hopefully and ideally, if that feedback is heard and agreed upon by many people, they can take that to heart and then make changes to the formula going forward to tighten up controls, tighten up the feel of the game, and make the game overall just a better experience. Xenoblade Chronicles is an IP that always felt like it was limited by the hardware that it was on. Some of the most beautiful, gorgeous worlds in all of gaming that you just lose yourself in, locked behind hardware like the Wii, the 3DS, the Wii U, and the Switch. Consoles that, compared to their peers, don't provide a visual experience a lot of a more casual audience may want out of a game like this. And I think it goes to show Monolith's brilliance that, despite the limitations of the hardware they have access to, they can still put out games that look as beautiful and engaging and enthralling as, say, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, or Xenoblade 3, or Xenoblade 2, or 1, or whatever. I think the Switch 2 will be a massive, okay, here's your opportunity when it comes to taking this series and blowing it the hell up in terms of popularity. Switch 2 might not be the most powerful console in the world, but it still seems like a significant jump in performance compared to the Switch, and I am personally salivating and chomping at the bit just to see what Monolith can cook up. I'm excited, and I'm optimistic for the future. And I think with that, I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and help support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe, have a great day, go play some video games if you can. Leave a comment down below with what your favorite thing in Xenoblade is. Could be a song, could be the music on the whole, could be a specific cutscene or a character, could be a single quest, just whatever. I'd love to hear your thoughts and hear your opinions and hear your perspectives. Have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.